Okay, so that log weighs 90 pounds. If I pull this log up in the air and hang it on this anchor point, either by myself and Casey holding on to this piece of rope or putting it in a porta wrap, right? What should the scale read?
180.
180. Yep. 90 pounds of tension in this leg of rope, 90 pounds of tension in this leg of rope should add up to 180. All right. I have a carabiner here, just a standard aluminum carabiner. These in general have a surface friction of about 50%, which oddly enough is about, there's a size range of natural limbs. When you're just rigging a rope over a limb or running a rope over a limb, that has about 50% friction. 1 pounds less. 120, there we go. Now I'm really letting it move. All right. Now, what do you think is going to happen when I try to raise it? More than 180? Yep. Man, this is a sharp group. I'm going to need your help with this. And we're going to try, because it also depends, I mean, right now it also depends, we'll talk about redirects and changing, pulling position later, but right now we're just trying to keep straight up and down. So in a static position, we had 140-ish pounds. Lowering it, we got down to like 120 something. So now let's pick it up. Nice and easy.
267.
Okay, 260 pounds. 270. Right, so 90 pounds, 100 plus 180 pounds of tension to raise it. Right, that equals 270. Very interesting. All right, so we can, I'm going to stop there and we're going to put in a pulley and see where that takes us. Now this is much harder for me to hold. I'm trying to just hold it with as little tension as possible. What are we showing? 164, 163?
Yeah.
Versus 140 from before. And if I lower that, about the same 160 staying there. Now if I lift it up, now this is easier for me to lift. 200? Okay. So there's a difference in numbers there. With a pulley in place, the spread between highest load and lowest load is a bit smaller, right? There's less friction to overcome. But that also means that I have to work harder to hold on to it because the friction isn't doing the work for me, right? But it's also easier for me to lift it because I don't have to overcome all that friction. So what does that mean exactly? Well, a couple things. Boy, how would I phrase that? With a pulley there, you get a little more predictable behavior. You know, you know how many wraps to take on the porta wrap, all that stuff. If you're redirecting over limbs, or you got limbs of different sizes, you might have a little extra friction. But I think the real takeaway here for us in a rigging situation is friction at your anchor point. When you are lowering a load, it reduces the force on that anchor point. So if I'm lowering this over that carabiner all day long, I get less force on that anchor because that friction is doing some of that work for me. And we get more force, much more force on the anchor when we're raising a load. So the quick takeaway is if you want to reduce force on an anchor point while lowering, have some friction up there. If you you want to reduce force when you're raising, use a pulley or something. So right, that limb, the GRCS, and that limb over the house or the pool that you want to raise away, you should have a pulley up top. Yeah, to reduce force there. For a branch, I've got it attached to my harness, and I'm just adjusting the length of this loop with the friction hitch. I have a pulley here for slack tending, so I can tend slack one-handed, or it fair leads when I've got my rope running over a branch, right? I can just descend and that fair leads in there. So I don't have to get in here and body thrust like that. But another advantage of that fair lead pulley is you've got a built-in mechanical advantage system. So if I simply take that tail and pull upward, okay, I've got a Z-rig, something that we use for pulling trees over all the time. This, in theory, this is a 3-to-1 mechanical advantage. So it's quite handy if I've got Casey up in a tree, passed out, stung by bees, whatever, and he's stuck in a crotch. I can easily go over and pick up that tail and yank up, and I've got a mechanical advantage to lift him, to rescue. Yep. Yep. And that's good. That's good segue, because that's what we're going to talk about right now. This is a simple mechanical advantage system, and by simple, that means we have a fixed anchor, one fixed anchor, and one moving block or moving portion. All right, and that's, I don't know if it's textbook definition, but that's a definition of a simple mechanical advantage system. One side stays put, or one pulley or one change of direction stays put, the other moves, okay? And in that case, to calculate the ideal mechanical advantage, what we would really like to get out of this is 3-to-1. I simply count the legs of rope at the moving block. 1, 2, 3, that's 3-to-1, ideally. But we have friction. We have friction in this sheave, not too much, but we do have friction here, and we've got friction up top here. So it is not actually a 3-to-1 anymore. First of all, I guess I should weigh myself, but I probably, with this harness on, I'm probably like 205, I'm guessing. All right. Let's take a look at that. Scale. We're going to need some audience participation here. What's that scale read? Okay, and I'm just a little shy of 90. All right, about 90 degrees now. What are we reading? 160. So that's 160 pounds of tension, right, on each anchor point. That's more than half of my body weight. We're gonna try to. All right, well, let's see how much I weigh then. But this should be roughly about 120 degrees. 66 and 51, yeah, pretty close. All right, so we can see, there we go. We just from taking a little bit of, just closing up, what am I trying to say? Tightening this up and making this angle flatter, I significantly increased my force on that anchor point, and I only moved up a foot. You know, I mean, this is a short span, but there's that principle in action, like what I just tried to illustrate very rudimentally on the board there. Right, and if I don't keep my butt dry, what are we at there? 130? 130? Yes. go a little bit. Try to keep my foot off. 145. How'd that go? Okay. Up a little bit. Also got to make sure I'm kind of in the center here. Well, anyway, you get the point, right? The more tension in this line, the higher this. As tight as we can get that. I'm going to try to jump on. Actually, what the heck am I doing? I can just do this. Same idea. I'm going to be hanging below it a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay, that's as high as I can get it, you know, with tension in my arms right now. But that's on each of those anchors. So my 205 pounds is 230 pounds on each anchor, but I'm suspended on a very tight. So I've got a little reader here for the load cell. Just give it a minute to boot up. Let me know when you're in position and I'll take a little slack out, Casey. Good. Okay, so 0. Said than done, right? When you're balancing on a slippery limb. Taking the safety off. You can leave it on, I think. Maybe we'll do a couple. But okay, so that's just locked off. A little bit of a drop there, obviously, but let's just see. So that's 90 pounds. And it's going to drop a good 6 feet, I imagine. Any guesses on what our peak force at the block will be? 50. Less than 100 pounds. It's a 90-pound piece of wood. He's going to dump that off, and we're going to catch it. What's the peak force? Just you don't have to shout it out. Keep it in your. Is this safe over here? Yeah. I think that limb is stout enough. I think we'll be all right. So keep your guesses in your head and let's see. Hopefully this works. Knock on wood. All right, Casey. Big? Yep. Oh shoot! I forgot to hit peak load again. Hit hold. There's lots of factors that come into play when we talk about the load going on here. You okay there, Casey? Yeah. I'll tighten up a little bit. Okay. Alright, we're on 0. I'm going to push peak hold. Here we go. Keep your guesses, and I'm set here. You guys all ready? Okay, stay clear. What's your guess? 630. I heard 630. How much? 475.
900.
900.
901.
901. $8. I got 1,080.
Wow.
Yes, I did. Okay, everybody clear? I'm not. 820. I mean, that's not entirely scientific, but less load because we had the added friction in that hollow spindle. So that's just straight aluminum. It's not a rolling sheet. So we reduced force there